Welcome back to part 2, how to determine a central idea and supporting details in an informational text. Before we delve into a passage to help us practice determining central idea, let's review what a central idea is. A central idea is the most important point the author is trying to make. In other words, it is what the text is mostly about. When you are done reading the passage, what is the one thing the author really wants you to remember from what they've written? That is the central idea of the text. To help us determine a central idea, we look at the supporting details. Supporting details are facts, examples, reasons, or descriptions that expand or elaborate on the central idea. The supporting details help flesh out or help describe the central idea in more detail. Finally, remember, the central ideas are often not stated. You have to put the supporting details together to understand the central idea. Before we take a look at a passage and practice on how to identify supporting details in the central idea, let's take a look at a video. The passage we're going to read about is all about the Venus flytrap. I've always been intrigued by how the Venus flytrap works. So here's a video of a fly being caught within a Venus flytrap. Notice, first, the fly is unsuspectingly climbing along on the plants. What he doesn't realize is that this is a Venus flytrap. And it closes around him. That was in slow motion. Let's watch it in actual time. Look how quickly it snaps down. All right, now that we've got an idea of the Venus flytrap, let's read more about it. This passage is called The Unusual Venus Flytrap by Amy Baker. Let's read it. The Venus flytrap is a unique plant with many admirers. This carnivorous plant grows in the bogs of North America. With red-lined lobes that resemble a mouth, the Venus flytrap looks more like a creature than a plant. It uses these lobes to capture and eat insects. It can even digest small frogs. The lobes have small trigger hairs that cause the plant to clamp down in an instant when unsuspecting prey comes too close. Finger-like extensions called cilia intertwine to keep the lobe shut tight. It is this trapping action that people find so fascinating. And now that we've read the passage, we want to think about what is the central idea of the paragraph and what details support this idea. I know that the central idea is the most important point an author wants to make. Sometimes it's not directly stated. So I like to start by looking at the title and the first and last sentences to help me see if I can find any clues as to what the central idea might be. In this case, our title is The Unusual Venus Flytrap. Notice the author included the word unusual. That tells me that this is something that you don't see every day. It's unusual. The first sentence says the Venus flytrap is a unique plant with many admirers. Again, the author describes the Venus flytrap as unique, which means not common, one of a kind. So we know that the central idea is going to be about the Venus flytrap and how it's unusual or unique. Let's look at the last sentence and see if we get any more clues about the central idea. It is this trapping action that people find so fascinating. Again, the author uses the word fascinating, which, like I said, I am intrigued or fascinated by the Venus flytrap. So if I put these details together, it's unusual, it's unique, it's fascinating, and I kind of take a quick look back at what it talked about, how it trapped the insects, what it looks like, it can eat frogs. Those details work together to help me come up with the idea that the author wrote this so that I would really understand that Venus flytraps are unusual plants that many people think are incredible. That would be the central idea, the one thing the author really wants me to get from this paragraph. Notice this was not stated anywhere in the text, but when we put all these details together, we could come up with the idea that the Venus flytrap is unusual and that people find it incredible. What are some details that help develop or elaborate on this idea? One of the details is that the Venus flytrap looks like a creature with a mouth. That helps develop the idea that it's an unusual plant. Plants do not usually look like they have a mouth, that they could eat something. Another detail that helps expand on the idea that Venus flytraps are unusual and incredible is that Venus flytraps can eat frogs. I've never seen a plant eat a frog. That's pretty unusual and kind of incredible. We need one more detail that helps develop this idea that plants are unusual and incredible. I'm going to skim through the text. When you skim a text, it means you're looking quickly for a specific reason. In this case, we're looking for another detail that would explain why the Venus flytrap is unusual and why we would find it incredible. Let's skim real quick. Did you find a clue? I did. One of the supporting details would be that the Venus flytrap is carnivorous. Remember, carnivorous or a carnivore is something that eats meat. So this is pretty unusual that we have a plant that is eating meat. All three of these details, it has a mouth, it can eat frogs, it's meat eating, help to explain or develop the idea that Venus flytraps are unusual plants that we find incredible. Before we continue reading about Venus flytraps, I wanted to talk about that word unsuspecting. The first thing I notice about the word unsuspecting is that it's in the sentence. The lobes have small trigger hairs that cause the plant to clamp down in an instant when unsuspecting prey comes too close. So think about the fly. When you see that word unsuspecting, I hope the first thing you notice is the prefix un. Remember, whenever the prefix un is put in front of the word, it means not. So we know that this means not suspecting. What does suspecting mean? Using clues from our text, we notice that the plant is going to clamp down on a not suspecting prey. Prey is food that is eaten, another animal usually, that is eaten by another animal. Typically, the prey doesn't realize it's about to be eaten. So that helps me understand that unsuspecting must mean without or not being aware that something is going to happen. So in this case, what they're not aware of is that the fly was about to be eaten by the plant. Okay? This mouse is unsuspecting of the fact that an owl is about to scoop it up and eat it. Let's read more about the Venus flytrap. We're going to continue reading. One of the mysterious things about the Venus flytrap is that scientists still don't understand how the trap closes. The flytrap does not have muscles, tendons, or nervous systems necessary for movement. Scientists guess that the trap might close using some electrical impulse and pressure changes. The longer they study the Venus flytrap, the more likely scientists are to discover how it functions. It should be no mystery, however, why this unusual plant has captured the imaginations of so many people. All right, we have a closed reading box here that says, find and underline the sentence in this paragraph that most closely restates the central idea you found on page 4. So remember, before we came to this page, we said that the central idea, the reason why this author is writing this passage, is because he wanted us to understand, or in this case, she wanted us to understand, that the Venus flytrap is unique and that people find it incredible. So we're going to reread this paragraph and underline the sentence that helps support the idea that the Venus flytrap is unusual and people are intrigued by it. One of the most mysterious things about the Venus flytrap is that scientists still don't understand how the trap closes. The flytrap does not have muscles, tendons, or nervous system necessary for movement. Scientists guess that the trap might close using some electrical impulses and pressure changes. The longer they study the Venus flytrap, the more likely scientists are to discover how it functions. It should be no mystery, however, why this unusual plant has captured the imagination of so many people. I didn't know if we'd have a sentence to underline, but there it is right at the end. Remember, we were looking for a sentence that helps support the idea that the Venus flytrap is unusual and people find it interesting. And the very last sentence says, the Venus flytrap is an unusual plant that has captured the imagination. So if something captures our imagination, that means we're intrigued by it, we find it interesting. It captures the imagination of so many people. Let's take a look at our question. Which sentence from the paragraph best shows the text's central idea? A. One of the most mysterious things about the Venus flytrap is that scientists still don't understand how the trap closes. B. The flytrap does not have muscles, tendons, or nervous system necessary for movement. C. Scientists guess that the trap might close using some electrical impulses and pressure changes. Or D. It should be no mystery, however, why this unusual plant has captured the imagination of so many people. We underlined sentence D above when we were trying to find the sentence that most closely relates to the central idea. So once again, we see that D is our best answer for the central idea of a text. It should be no mystery, however, why this unusual plant has captured the imagination of so many people. That sentence best explains the central idea, the one thing the author really wanted us to understand, that this was an unusual plant that is fascinating. Now, I always like to take a look at the other answers to figure out why they weren't the best choice. A said, one of the most mysterious things about the Venus flytrap is that scientists still don't understand how the trap closes. This would not be the central idea because even though it provides a detail about the Venus flytrap, it's not the one thing the author really wants us to understand. B. The flytrap does not have muscles, tendons, or nervous system necessary for movement. Again, this is a great detail that describes the mystery of the Venus flytrap, but it does not help us understand the central idea or the one reason the author wrote the article. And then C. Scientists guess that the trap might close using some electrical impulses and pressure changes. Again, this sentence is a hypothesis or a guess about the plant's trap. But it's not the central idea, the one thing the author really wants us to understand when we're done reading the passage. So D makes the best sense because the author wrote the entire passage for us to understand that the Venus flytrap is an unusual plant that has captured the fascination of so many people.